Welcome to White People, Black Music, and Liberation. I'm Eric, and I'm here on the journey with you. This is a transmission at the intersection of race, music, and spirituality. It's about moving past the programming and into liberation. What am I going to say about Matt, aka Matré? Well, one person who's been a spiritual compass for me in this journey is Shelley Touchlook. I've mentioned her a couple times because her work has been really formative and transformative for me. I've stayed with her in touch periodically as I've put together these conversations, and she suggested I reach out to Matt, only to find out that Matt and I have 4 or 5 mutual friends from his time here in the Bay Area. On top of that, when we had our first conversation, we realized that our ethnic heritages line up very closely. He's Arab American, half Arab, half white like I am, and that brought an interesting layer to the interaction. There's a nuance in the work that we do that emerges when identities kind of blur and overlap, and that showed up for us. And so it just was really cool to feel seen by him, and hopefully it was really cool to feel seen by him, and especially because Matt is just a courageous conversationalist. As his podcast Love Bravely would suggest, he's just very brave in how openly he shares his vulnerability, both in content and in style. And we really just immediately clicked. I felt stoked getting to know him, like adding a friend to my circle. So many overlapping threads: Arab American identity, love of music, especially Black music, anti-racism work, and then kind of seeking a spiritual compass for all of it. When he refers in this episode to our conversation, he's talking about that first exchange that we had, and it was one of those whoa conversations where we realized just how much overlap there was in our experiences. And of course, in anti-racism circles, conversations around multiple intersecting identities don't always get the space. They just don't always get space. So this felt unique. Another piece of housekeeping: I set this interview up with Matt, who's known as Matré in the music world, a hip-hop artist. He's released lots of powerful work with the specific intention of bringing healing and transformation to racial justice work. Definitely check out his music, and also his new Love Bravely podcast, where he shares stories about his music and just very inspiring work. Now, about this episode, this conversation starts kind of abruptly because I edited some things out. We just jump straight into why is it so hard to talk about race. And if the editing feels a bit awkward, thanks for bearing with it. Matt and I actually talked for a long time, so it made sense to split this into smaller episodes that focus on specific questions, which is, at least right now, the MO of the show, of the transmissions. In our first conversation, one thing that stood out was how much of a wound racism is for everyone and how hard it is to even talk about. And that's what's being referenced at the end when Matt asks, why should we even care about racism? It's such a simple question, yet it really cuts to the core. So without further ado, let's get into it. Matt Sawaya, Matré.
It's so hard to talk about this stuff because even as I've gone, even just the first few conversations I've had with people, it's people who, to my knowledge, like have thought a lot about this and done some inner reconciling with race and whiteness and privilege and all these things. Yet, even all that besides, like, it's just really hard for people to talk about it.
Yeah, I really appreciate starting that way and the things that you said. And I feel like it takes me into the territory of your question, in terms of like, why is this such difficult territory to go into to talk about? Yeah, and just feeling how much questioning can be there about what to say and what not to say and how to say things. And that it is a place of a lot of wound.
Mm.
And it's a vulnerable place. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, like, for me, I've been thinking about a lot about what it means to really work with love. And the question, okay, what is how do I work with these questions around race and actually work with it in a way that is coming from love? And I mean, applying that question to anything in my life, but if, talking about this, and then this sort of, it brings me to this place of, I could try to just say the things that feel like they're going to come off the best.
Yeah.
Or I could try to really ask the question, what is going to actually be helpful? Even if it makes me feel more vulnerable, even if it might make me feel afraid of certain judgment. What can I actually say? What can I actually explore in the context of a conversation like this one that's going to help me grow in the direction of actually being able to serve what's helpful, and that actually is love in that it's actually coming from a place of what can serve what's needed for helping, this really deep and difficult part of our world and our lives, as opposed to, what can I say that's going to make me feel like I came off sounding good or right. And that's just the threshold for me in my own process that applies to a lot of different parts of my life, but definitely comes up with this. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers a little bit of the opening question. Yeah, like I think I was starting to say, like, in any conversation that's, like a deep or deeply meaningful conversation where we're talking about something that is connected to like our growing edge, like where we're trying to really grow and learn, that I like to be in that conversation in a way that in the conversation I'm at that edge and having the possibility that something new can come through the conversation and that I can grow through it and maybe we can grow together through it. And like the kind of conversation that we had when we first talked, you and I, and it's really interesting the moment that you introduced the microphones and the idea that other people might listen to this later, because it brings a whole nother level of vulnerability to that intention of trying to just be at that growing edge. And when it was just you and me, there's still vulnerability, especially because you and I are just getting to know each other. but I'm just realizing, it does. And so how do we, I guess maybe I'm in a way trying to ask myself, how can I approach the conversation in a way that I can be in that same level of openness, regardless of if we got the mics rolling or not.
Since I kind of started down this path of wanting to put together some conversations around this idea of race, there's been fear coming up for me, and the fear is kind of like sharpened in focus a little bit more and more over time as I see it a little bit more. And what's surprising to me is that the fear is not really about how people who are like straight up like racists, like not card-carrying Nazis. It's not really about those people. It's about like the people in my circles whose beliefs like I probably 90% or 85% of the time would agree with, who now, because I didn't say something exactly right or whatever, it's more about being called out by my in-group than it is by like my out-group. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I can relate. I can relate to that.
Yeah,
for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
So that's it for now. Yeah. We're going to have a couple more episodes with Matt Sawaya Matre. The next one is going to be around the central tension of being white and loving Black music, and what is the right relationship to have between those two things. So stay tuned for that. Okay, wishing y'all a great day. I'm Eric, and this has been White People, Black Music, and Liberation. If this message speaks to you and you want to be part of the journey, head to whitepeopleblackmusic.com and let's build a world where liberation is for everyone.